This is Sam's O-Gauge Trains and welcome to another video. Today I bring the channel a museum tour of the National New York Central Railroad Museum in Elkhart, Indiana. The museum features tons of artifacts relating to the New York Central Railroad. These artifacts include maps, railroad equipment, dishes from the 20th Century Limited, gauges that were on the 3001 Mohawk, model trains, and of course, real trains. So join me as we take a tour of the New York Central National Railroad Museum. All aboard! Let's go ahead and start with the left side of the museum. The maps and pictures discuss Elkhart's rail yards and roundhouses. The banners also discuss how freight cars were organized in the yard. On the right side, the museum has gathered various pictures and documents that are affiliated with the railroad history in the Elkhart area. It's really cool to see all of these local artifacts in chronological order. As you continue down the hallway, you are met with various railroad maps of Indiana. The maps show the railroad progression throughout the years. The second map shows all of the New York Central routes from Indiana to the East Coast. The reason why the New York Central ran through Indiana is because the New York Central bought out the previous railroad that occupied the Midwest. This railroad was called the Cleveland, Cincinnati, Chicago, and St. Louis Railroad, or otherwise known as the Big Four. In 1906, the New York Central Railroad bought out the Big Four, but the railroad continued to operate as a separate entity until 1930. The second map on display showcases all of the New York Central routes. I guess I need to start collecting more New York Central related trains because the New York Central ran through Indiana and my college town of Muncie, Indiana. Seeing all of these maps was quite exciting because I could personally connect with the railroad history. Before visiting the museum, I had no idea how influential the New York Central Railroad was in my home state. As you progress through the maps, you can see how times have changed and railroads were no longer the main mode of transportation. After the first room, one can begin to enter the next room. This room is quite interesting as it features tons of railroad artifacts. As you enter the room, you are greeted with various toy trains on display, a huge New York Central Railroad sign, and even a Penn Central uniform. With each display case, a key is offered to help identify the artifacts displayed inside. A couple artifacts that I found quite fascinating were a couple of Conrail first aid kits, and a picture that featured the 20th Century Limited in Elkhart, Indiana. Now, I live nowhere near Elkhart, but the fact that the 20th Century Limited was in Indiana blew my mind. Speaking on the topic of facts that blew my mind, I found out that the 3001 steam engine that is displayed at the museum was present in Indianapolis at one point in time. On the left, one can enter the Pullman and the 3001 section of the museum. In the display case, various gauges from the engine are displayed, along with pictures and panels with history on the 3001. If it wasn't for the Lakeshore Railroad Historical Society, we wouldn't have the 3001 on display today. As one continues, one can see a huge wooden display of a Pennsylvania Railroad engine. Now, I'm not sure of the significance, but nonetheless, the wooden craft displays excellent craftsmanship. The last display case worth a mention is the case full of dishes. These dishes came off the 20th Century Limited and offer an example of what it was like to travel in first class on the New York Central 20th Century Limited. The last section in the room offers various railroad equipment, but the next main attraction is the layout room. As one walks to the layout room, they are met with the restrooms and a couple of New York Central model train displays. One case features New York Central cabooses, and the other one features New York Central steam engines. Once in the room, the layout greets you with model trains on display. The layout itself is an O-gauge/O scale U-shaped layout. It features different elements of Elkhart, New York Central Railroad, and other notable elements. The model trains displayed in the shelves were various collections donated to the museum. Towards the back of the layout, one can see where they add/remove trains to the layout. Once outside, one is greeted by the New York Central E8 on full display. It is really cool to look out the engineer's window and see the 3001 across the way. Imagine being an engineer and seeing the 3001 chuffing up ahead on the next track. As one wanders behind the engineer's seat, one can see the entire engine of the E8 locomotive. The vastness and scale of the E8's inner workings also blew my mind. Imagine how loud it would have been. Also, a funny thing I noticed was the toilet next to the generator. Imagine having to do your business next to the screaming E8 engine. I don't think I could personally do that myself. The last main attraction is the real 3001 on display. Now, it isn't functional, but the paint and condition cosmetically of the 3001 is amazing. One can climb onto this engine as well and explore the cab and sit in the engineer's seat. The sheer size of the locomotive is mind-blowing, and I am just about as tall as one of the drive wheels. I can't imagine how this engine sounded and ran back in the day. The rest of the museum features a Penn Central GG1, various railroad cars, and a crane car. One can access the GG1, but none of the railroad cars are accessible on the inside. In the front of the Railroad Museum, there is a New York Central observation car accessible by going through the museum lobby. Inside the passenger car, there are just some tables and toys for kids to play with. Nothing particularly mind-blowing here. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the New York Central National Railroad Museum tour. I highly encourage you guys to visit the museum if you are in the Elkhart area. Again, thank you for watching the video, and I'll see all of my lovely viewers in the next video.